It was news to us that tons of chemical pesticides are routinely used to produce the food we eat. Our assignment was to talk to some of the major players on the pesticide trail and find out how safe is our food. First stop, the offices of Friends of the Earth.
So how much of our food contains pesticides?
Well, we found that about half of the fresh fruit and vegetables that you buy in supermarkets contains pesticide residues. Sometimes the safety limits and the legal limits are exceeded, but most of the time the levels are low, but we still think that there is a consumer concern there, a health concern about even low levels of pesticides.
So how do the pesticides get into the food in the first place?
Well, pesticides are used by farmers and growers to control insects and diseases in their crops, but they're also used for cosmetic purposes as well. So, for example, on apples, you'll find that the requirements of the supermarkets for a perfect looking apple mean that farmers actually have to spray more chemicals on the crops, and that means that sometimes the pesticides are still in the fruit and veg when we buy them in the supermarkets. Some pesticides are on the surface, so you can peel them away, but others are actually in the whole fruit, so they're taken up by the whole fruit or vegetable, so you can't remove them.
How many pesticides do you think would be on an average conventionally farmed apple like this one?
It does vary, and we should remember that some apples won't have any pesticides on, so I think the last time they were tested, about a third of apples contained pesticides. Now some of those will have more than one pesticide, and you can get 2 or 3 pesticides on one piece of fruit. We found in, I think in lettuces, in fact, there's been up to 6 pesticides, so it does vary, but so it's kind of a bit of a toxic lottery really as to whether you get the pesticide-free apple or the apple with 3 residues on.
Why are pesticides a problem?
There are a number of concerns about being exposed to pesticides. For example, many pesticides are known to be hormone disruptors. Other pesticides work on the nervous system, and we're particularly concerned about the impact that that might be having on babies and young children, because as their bodies are developing, they're particularly vulnerable to the effect of these pesticides. And there's more and more evidence that, particularly, for example, with the hormone disrupting pesticides, that those can have an effect at a very, very low level of exposure.
What exactly is hormone disrupting?
Well, hormone-disrupting chemicals, which includes pesticides, can work in a number of ways. So some of them actually mimic the hormones that are in our body. Others block the sort of natural working of hormones in our body, so they're working a number of ways. So we've seen lower sperm counts from exposure to particular fungicides, for example. There's also increasing concern that because of the way chemicals interfere with the way hormones work in the body, this is leading to increases in particular types of cancer. Because we can produce food that doesn't contain these chemicals, so why should we be exposed to potentially harmful chemicals even if we're not completely certain about what those effects are? We should be trying to reduce our exposure to them.